Drag Race Holland is an interesting thought experiment, but ultimately lacks any insight into what makes Dutch drag different, unique, or extraordinary. The very first international season of Drag Race Thailand, makes huge swings in both of its existing seasons, changing the judging style, panel, challenge layouts, budget, and queen care. Even when it comes down to deliberation, Pangina and Art are never afraid to place more than 2 queens in the bottom if they perceive a fail on the runway that was so glaring that it couldn't be forgiven. They frequently double eliminate when the queens aren't up to snuff, and more importantly over everything, Drag Race Thailand celebrates Thai culture by bringing it to the center stage. Each challenge focuses on Thai culture, actively avoids trying to Americanize their show too much, or copy the Drag Race formula verbatim. By the time that Drag Race UK rolls around, it was clearly neutered by Ru's presence, as she's really not a part of British culture, and most definitely not involved in the British drag scene. But the production team tries its best to bring silly UK references into the challenges and runways, and the queens aren't afraid to show how British drag is edgier and campier than the more overly refined American drag that audiences had become used to. UK drag has a noticeable grit to it. Queens like Bag of Chips, Davina, and Crystal were really not afraid to bring that grit to the runway. Drag Race Canada even managed to showcase how Canadian drag is more grassroots, nightlife focused, and the runways typically looked like things you would see in the nightclubs as opposed to these high fashion Met Gala looks that we are used to seeing in US Drag Race. In the challenges, they celebrated Canadianisms and did their best to show how Canadian drag was more of the people than their southern neighbors were putting on. So when Drag Race Holland appeared on the scene, it felt like it was about to be a thrilling romp through Dutch drag. How is this unique? What perspectives do the queens have? How will they translate their culture into the challenges? But instead, Drag Race Holland takes almost no swings. It's resistant to doing so. The most Dutch culture thing that we see is during the acting challenge, where it references a famous, now canceled TV show, but the writing was so poor that all of the culture was lost in translation. Queens like Setter Jean and Madame Madness, who had the most clear points of view as queens, got severely overlooked for the constant bickering and drama that Abby OMG has with literally every single cast member, from Janie Jacquet to Envy Peru. Their light and sparkle is dimmed because the cameras are trying to catch drama and make the show more palatable for an American audience. At least that's how it came off. Drag Race Holland seems obsessed with catching the energy of early seasons of Drag Race, a la seasons 3 to 6, even paraphrasing challenges, that it doesn't quite give a fair shot to its queens to show what makes their drag different from the rest of the world. I also believe that whoever was in charge of writing did not give memos to the translation teams, and certainly did not give notes to RuPaul, because one of the runway categories is called Give Face, 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 and the queens come out in artistic looks, which were all well and good, but didn't match the runway prompt that RuPaul narrates right before the runway. And to be clear, I am specifically speaking about Drag Race Holland Season 1, as I haven't seen Season 2 up until this point, so maybe Season 2 really does take big swings and shows what makes Holland drag different. But what I will say is that Season 1 didn't do that. And let me make it abundantly clear, I enjoy this cast a lot. From Room all the way to the winner, Envy Peru, I don't think there's a dud in this room. I may not enjoy Abby OMG's energy in the workroom or otherwise, but she's a talented queen. The various drag styles represented from each queen really paints a good picture of that drag in Holland is as diverse as it is anywhere else. And the emphasis seems to be on the grand, over-the-top costuming. But none of that is properly shared or celebrated on camera, in my homosexual opinion. Most frustratingly, Fred and his main judge, Nikki, seemed to celebrate only specific drag styles. During a very important discussion of being non-binary and gender non-conforming, the show breezes through the conversation to pick at how the split look wasn't masculine and feminine enough, completely ignoring the messaging. Avant-garde looks are oftentimes not celebrated for something a little more traditional looking. And throughout the season, it's very inconsistent what Fred and Nikki seem to like. And so the thought experiment of Drag Race Holland continues. Was the question answered as to whether this show deserved a second season? And if it was doing enough for the Drag Race zeitgeist, or simply continuing the bloat. I'm more inclined to believe that it was simply continuing the bloat. However, I think that falls on production and the judging over the casting. I do ultimately wonder if Rue was too nervous about sharing her brand with someone, so she insisted on doing weekly video messages and runway messages, or if that was by Fred's request. In any case, it dims Fred's authority as a judge and a host, and it makes it seem like the umbilical cord to American drag sensibility has not been cut and probably never would be. And ultimately, I think that Drag Race Holland was trying to copy American Drag Race far too hard, that it didn't focus on what made Holland and that drag special.